you more than you ever wanted to know about Runbooks. So I'm going to start with this question. Does anyone recognize this person? I think, just kind of look really carefully. Usually it's something around the eyes. It's a bit of a giveaway. If any of you have ever been on call and maybe have been woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning to deal with a high priority incident, maybe in an area that you're not really that comfortable with, maybe you don't just recognize that person. Maybe you are that person. So, welcome. I am Leena Moonaeram. I'm a senior platform engineer at Chainalysis, who are the data platform for the blockchain.
And I am Nanuti. I am a senior software engineer at Chainalysis.
And as I said, today we're going to tell you about how to take your runbooks to the next level. So we're going to go through, tell you a little bit about what is a runbook, just so that we're all on the same page. We're going to go through, explain to you, I suppose, why we think runbooks matter. What's a bad runbook? What's a good runbook? Diana's going to take you through her self-defined runbook maturity model. And I'm going to finish up with a few ways of how you can very quickly just elevate your runbooks and just take them to the next level. And then we'll give you a couple of takeaways, just to keep you warm on your great journey home. So, Diana, what is a runbook?
Thank you, Leena. Well, a runbook is a guide with step-by-step instructions that outlines how to complete a process or a task. But you can also think of it as a living document because it needs to get updated with your software and your infrastructure changes or even your processes changes. And we often think about it just in the context of on-call or in the context of high-pressure incidents, but it's useful for other processes as well. So we can think of runbooks for an onboarding process or any kind of repetitive task that you will need to do periodically. It's useful to have a runbook for. Now that we are all aligned with what a runbook is, I'm gonna hand it back to Leena to see why do they matter.
Okay. Oh, I went too quickly. So why do runbooks matter? Okay. So for me, I think they matter at a number of key points. So one of them being in the middle of the night. And the other one is during, may as well, seeing as I've spoiled it, any other time. So in the middle of the night, I think we could probably, if you've ever been on call and you've had to deal with these incidents, you probably know the value of having a clear, repeatable, tested set of steps to follow. You've woken up, you're still trying to kind of, clean the sleep out of your eyes and actually just understand why things are buzzing and ringing and what's making all the noise. So if you've got that step-by-step recipe of what to do in a specific situation, what the runbook does is it gives you confidence. And if you've got this step-by-step set of instructions that's already tested, you're minimizing your downtime, you're resolving your issues much more efficiently and also with less errors, particularly if you're not particularly awake and there's too many other things ringing and making noise. The other thing about runbooks is that they're obviously not just for when there's an incident. They're great, like just during your day-to-day or any day-to-day interaction. So if you've got a new member of the team that's joining and they're trying to ramp up, if you've got that information there that's clear and that's understandable on how to deal with specific situations or to complete a certain task, it makes that onboarding so much easier. It helps you scale your team with less problems and less dependencies. You haven't got that bus factor that we just heard about, where you've got a dependency on one particular engineer that has specific domain knowledge in an area that you always have to bug because you don't know how to do something or you don't know what permissions you need to complete a certain task. So runbooks are also great at asynchronous knowledge transfer. Let me try and move on to the next one.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But as Sunday's going to tell us later, we have AI. Why do we need runbooks? right? So AI can tell us what to do. There's an instant I can just kind of ask maybe what to do. But I mean, who here has ever asked a kind of model something and got an answer that isn't maybe quite right or isn't quite what you need, is maybe actually plain wrong, right? And in those kind of high, kind of perhaps high visibility issues, do you want to take that risk? So what you get with a runbook is, again, is that tried and tested and verified and validated set of steps. Now, by all means, you can use AI to help improve your runbooks, or perhaps even sometimes create your runbooks, as you'll see that we did. But I don't think we're there completely just yet. Ooh. So what makes a bad runbook?
Well, I'm going to return the question to Leena. So what do you think is the worst runbook?
Yes. Okay. So for me, I think the worst runbook is actually no runbook, right? Is not having one. I'm the sort of engineer that if I'm doing something new, the last thing I want to do is actually ask someone. I'd much rather be able to try and work it out for myself, or at least have somewhere to start. So for me, it would be not having a runbook at all.
I completely agree. But even when we have a runbook, there might be some things that could go better. So if we think of a runbook that has content quality issues, so that has vague instructions like restart the server if it stops responding. It doesn't tell you how to identify which server is not responding, what that actually means. And it doesn't tell you also what's the command that you need to run to actually restart it. Or even so, we could have instructions, but we don't have enough background context. So, for example, if you think of the onboarding example, we can have like assign new permissions for a person that's joining your company, but you don't know exactly in which systems you need to provide those permissions. You don't know exactly what's the permission set for that particular role and that particular team. And once you sort out the content quality issues, then you go to the maintenance and upkeep issues. So we often have runbooks that just get stale, outdated. We simply fail to maintain them, and they get into that state due to a lack of ownership. So this is more of a call to action here. If you don't have a clear process of how to maintain and to update your runbooks, then perhaps it's room for you to actually create that process. It's room for you to actually influence your team and define that for your team, your organization, your company. And not only that, but after you define this process, you will have multiple versions of a runbook that can be just floating around. And you'll need to know at that 3 a.m. Incident which runbook you need to use. You need to know which is the most accurate one. You need to know if one update created perhaps a command that is not working as expected, and you need to know what's the reliable version. So you should have some form of version control for your runbooks. And once you sort these out as well, you also can be more careful about usability and accessibility. And here I'm thinking of, we are not all English speakers. So at 3 a.m., perhaps I won't be able to process some more fancy terms. And you need to write those runbooks in a very simple manner that they can be followed simply, stupid, naively. Just go through the runbook, stick to the instructions, and just follow those steps to resolve your issue. And not only that, but you don't want a long unformatted narrative. You don't want a long unformatted doc that you cannot point in what are your actual instructions that you need to run. So now that we know what makes a bad runbook, let's see how we can make it better. And yeah, I'm proposing this sort of runbooks maturity path, where I'm proposing to start with wiki pages. This is something that probably you already have seen or have. It's usually narrative guidance in docs, in Confluence, maybe even a .md file. This is human readable and also human executable. It will just you will just manually go and naively execute those steps. Then you can take this one step further and have some schema-based runbooks. We will see a bit later in a small demo part that we have that you would like to define these, perhaps let's say in a YAML or JSON file, because this isn't just like human readable and executable, but you can also have scripts and make it machine readable so that you can have some automation in place to execute those runbooks. And after you have some automation in place, that gives you room to have tests in place for those runbooks. You can have CI workflows that will validate your runbooks and that will pinpoint those issues that I mentioned earlier that may occur when you are updating those runbooks. And that kind of makes room to have some form of partial automation. Then, now that we have an AI progress, we can think of getting a human in the loop execution and AI assistance, basically to have some form of like chat where you have a model that already has all the background context that it needs for your project and your infrastructure, and you can ask about what you can do to solve a particular incident. And not only that, it should summarize, for example, what the actual issue is, and also to provide you the mitigation steps. And of course, the end goal would be to lean towards self-healing incidents, where the system is able to automatically apply some scripts, to automatically run some runbooks to actually resolve the issue in the middle of the night. Of course, this isn't in the sense of replacing human need. It's just to make our lives easier, to be kind to our 3 a.m. selves and not need to do that manually. And as I said, we have a small demo part. So we have this project. I'm sorry, Marcin, I couldn't stay away completely from Java. We have a small Java project. It's it's with Java and Spring. It has a Postgres database with some with some endpoints to just create users, lock users, so on and so forth. I have emphasized some of these runbooks here. I didn't get to an actual example for the self-healing one because that needs more context for to mimic like a production-like thing, and also for the actual, let's say, wiki. This is like a very rough example. You can see that it misses a lot of stuff. So this normally for a production ready system should have like the name of the application, should have some identifiable tags, should have the owning team, should have an escalation path. So just think of this as a very rough example to emphasize what we wanted. And I'm not gonna do a live demo just to save us some time, and also because I don't have the project long here. So let's start with this. Let me see if it's Marcin, I might need your help a bit. Thank you. Or wait, it's working. I think. Yes. Yeah. I got too used to macOS. Okay. So what we have here, I'll do a small setup before. So we can see here that the application is up and running, and also the database is up and running. I'm gonna simulate that the database is down. I forgot to mention that this is running 2 separate Docker containers, one for the application and one for the Postgres database. I'm turning off the Postgres database. I'm verifying now on the health check endpoint that the database is down. And now that I simulated the database failure, I am following the steps in the runbook. So I will just go naively, run the Docker PS as said. I'm seeing that only the app process is running. Then I'm checking the logs. In the database logs, I can see that the database system is shut down. I don't see anything related to credentials, so I'm just skipping steps 3 and 4. And then I will jump to step 5. where I will just naively, as I said, copy paste the command. The database is now again up, and I'm running the validation steps to confirm that this is again up and running. So this is sort of the starting point that you can have for a runbook. And then you can move forward to the schema-based runbook that I previously mentioned. Oh, I think I turned off VLC. Okay, Marcin, now I really need your help. Sorry. I turned off VLC accidentally.
Which one you need? No?
The schema-based, but it doesn't start with double click. You need to turn VLC and to drag and drop it. Sorry, I haven't used Linux since I was in uni, and that was more than 10 years ago. So yeah, I'm that old. Okay, cool. So now the second example that's already started is with the schema-based runbook. Of course, we can follow this. It's human readable as well, but it's not as friendly with humans. We can follow this, but it's better to actually write that script that I mentioned. So what I will do here is to simulate a logged user. Firstly, I will check that there is no logged user, and now I'm doing that setup. I'm also checking the user list. There is no user there, and then I'm creating a user. Now we have Alice with her user ID 1. We can see that Alice is active, and now we are locking the user. We are checking again to see that the list of users shows Alice logged, and we are checking with the curl in the runbook that this is the username that got logged. And now, instead of just following this runbook, we will be running a script that is able to simply unlock Alice. Of course, this is a very trivial example, but just imagine that you would have like multiple instructions to actually run here. The script takes in the username. Of course, this could just like run the runbook itself, but perhaps you don't want to unlock all the users. Maybe some of them were locked intentionally. We can see now that the user is active. Oh, I closed it again. I need to. Where was it? I keep closing it. Sorry. I don't want to let you rest. I don't know.
So I teach you something.
I didn't look. Okay.
Here.
Okay, VLC or
V.
yeah, okay, got it. Thank you. Cool. Now we move forward to the CI validated one. I can actually show it here. So what I had is a very simple validation in place. So I have a very simple workflow that I ran a couple of times. It's just doing linting on the runbook, and then the simulation part is simply doing a sort of dry run where I just echoed the commands. But normally, if you have the application deployed somewhere, perhaps you have development environments or test environments, you can write some scripts to automate that failure setup, and then you can have your runbooks actually running properly against a real world, let's say, environment. And yeah, and then this is less of a demo, let's say, because I didn't add any credit, but this is sort of mimicking what the AI assistant thing would do. This is calling OpenAI behind the scenes, but I didn't add any credit to it. So we'll just, because it wouldn't have any context on the application and so on and so forth. So this is just like providing the high level idea of how the AI assisted runbooks would look like. And yeah, you can see the error that I exceeded the quota because yeah, I didn't add any credit or anything to it. Okay, now let's move back to this. Cool. So now that we've seen the Runbook's maturity path, how what are the important parts about this is to remember to make your runbooks discoverable, to add labels, to add tags, to have the symptoms that your application or system may have, to have the errors perhaps, to have the URLs to your runbooks in your alert that you get when you are on call. Then, of course, to lean into automation and to try to make them as testable as possible. To ensure they are safe. So while we go towards automation, we need to ensure that we have a predefined set of allow listed actions, allow listed users, and to ask for a two-person review or a human review in the case of AI-assisted things that the action that we are about to run, especially in a production environment, is safe to run. Of course, we need to see to quantify somehow these improvements. So we need to define metrics to measure this. You can start simply with the mean time to acknowledge and mean time to resolve and work from there. See that, monitor if the improvements that you've done on your runbook are actually leading to a quicker time to a resolution. Then, of course, we need to have them in a maintainable state. So perhaps you will just store them in a VCS or a version control system, or whichever solution works for you. And you should also have some form of owners for that, being it either a person or a team, but you should have someone that is at least checking that your runbooks don't get all broken after a change, and to have them periodically evaluated and reviewed. We often do that only when we have postmortems, but we should do that at least, I don't know, on a monthly basis to make sure that we don't get paged at 3 a.m. and we have a runbook that's not useful at all. Now that I completed the demo with some hiccups, I will pass it back to Leena to learn how to elevate them further.
Oh. Might actually need my cursor, can't we? See where we are. Right.
Next.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. So, right. So I did promise at the beginning that you would learn or hear more about runbooks than you ever wanted to know. Right. So I think we have, right? You've seen now the demos of the runbooks, from literally just a set of steps to something that could be quite sophisticated with some kind of AI models involved. So what you can do, though, I mean, I'm hoping that what we're showing is not necessarily what a runbook is, because I imagine you all know, but hopefully what we're trying to kind of demonstrate is really how important they are and how important they can be. We all have runbooks of some nature kicking around, but it really helps to make them I suppose conventional and accessible and be what you expect them to be. And so really our ask for you really is can you elevate your runbooks? And there's some really easy steps that you can take that just take your runbooks from 0 to, even if it's just a step up, would be I think for your engineer at 3 o'clock in the morning or even at 3 o'clock in the afternoon would be a great boon. So to elevate your runbooks, you can actually just do like the very basic kind of 80% of it is just making sure that your runbooks have an owner. Things that get owned, get looked after, get maintained. Make sure that they are, even within your team, conventional if you can. Even better if you can get them conventional across your engineering org, so that when you pick up a runbook, you know that it will always have a section with what prerequisites you need. You know that there will be a set of steps that you need. You know that there will potentially be a link to any dashboard that you need to help triage your incident or help support your task. Also, obviously, really basic, really obvious suggestions, keep them relevant. It's much better, I think, to have much more focused atomic runbooks that deal with a specific task, rather than a runbook that tries to do everything and nobody wants to read it or maintain it. The AI word again is the next one. AI can help. I wouldn't personally hand over everything to AI is a very generic term, but we've actually used it to great effect at chain analysis, particularly actually with situations where we don't have a runbook. So there's an incident that's occurred, it's been resolved, and the artifacts from that incident is a really, really rich incident channel with kind of descriptions of what was done, what was investigated, where we looked. And we pointed one of our internal AI tools at that channel and gave it a very kind of clear set of instructions, but actually asked it to create a runbook from the conversations around the incident. And that's actually been very helpful. It's been used across kind of our engineering org. Could also obviously be used for on-demand triage, as one of Diana's demo showed. Thirdly, automate where you can. We don't like doing boring, tedious stuff, and boring, tedious stuff at 3 o'clock in the morning tends to cause errors. So if there are things that you can do to automate it, I would do it. And then another way, I think I've got no runbook there. I know I said that no runbook was my idea of the worst kind of runbook, but ironically, I think it's also where we would like to go towards. I think the end goal would be a situation where we don't need a runbook, where systems and applications are self-healing, self-monitoring. I don't think we're there yet, unfortunately. So we are towards the end. Well, almost towards the end of our presentation, and the few takeaways that Diana and I, normally we do it a little bit more flashy, but the takeaways that Diana and I would like you to take away with you today would be, for me, is one that runbooks actually do matter. I think we've both been burnt, which is why we're both standing up here talking about runbooks. And so I know I said I already had an ask, if I had another ask of you today, if you find just all tomorrow, go into work and pick a runbook and audit it. If there is a runbook that you wouldn't trust at 3 o'clock in the morning, fix it. It might take you half an hour just to take a look through and review it. Diana?
Oh. I wasn't expecting to do the switch. Yeah, I guess conventions matter. So if you can define a standard, if you can define a template, if you can define some form of grouping for your runbooks, for your project, please do that, so that anyone not necessarily from your team is able to find a runbook that they might need, and perhaps they won't page you if they find it and can use it.
We're going to do this a little bit. So my other ask of you is to automate. So again, going back, if there is part of a runbook that is boring and is complex, it'll be error prone. So automate it. And generally what you find is across, particularly in a specific, in the same domain, there'll be runbooks, you'll have the same common steps. And so if you can automate part of that and make that runbook, one, much more easy to test and to update, automate it. Last one.
Yeah, last but not least, leverage AI, use it to make your life easier, use it to make your work easier, use it to do the boring tasks like creating runbooks and perhaps updating them, test them. For example, the demo I created it just leveraging AI tooling like ChatGPT and Google Studio, so you can do that. Yeah, I guess this was us. Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, so we leave you with one last thing. Well, thank you very much for listening to our talk about runbooks. Thank you. And we'd like to just leave you with, hopefully, if you elevate your runbooks even a tiny little bit, you could go from being this engineer here to, I don't know, except I can't see because I've got my glasses off, which ruins the effect. So you go from being this engineer here to this engineer here. Of course. Thank you.
So can you give us an example of a real runbook that you're using?
So I'm part of the platform team. We have a managed Kubernetes service where we, so it's a relatively new project for us. And we allow our engineers in the org to self-serve tenants and namespaces in a Kubernetes cluster. So what we have is it's partly automated, but it does get to a part where it raises a number of PRs that platform need to get involved and take a number of steps. That process is at the moment still a little bit complex, and unless you're doing it fairly regularly, you're not going to be able to just turn up and do it and run it and make sure that you've got all the secrets in and everything's all configured correctly and all the checks are done. So that's something that's actually a great runbook. And as our platform team is growing and expanding, or as we're getting new people on, what it does is it enables the new engineers, actually over the old engineers, because I haven't done it for a little while. So I had to kind of dig out the runbook this morning to try and understand or remember what I needed to do. And obviously the process has changed since I last did it. So it's really good to have those sets of updatable steps or updated steps. So that was really good. But also any of the new engineers can then just look up this runbook and take whatever steps they need to do and do the tasks that are required and get to the end without having to pull in another, perhaps more established engineer.
In a previous experience, I've seen like full end-to-end automation. So, for example, not to the point of self-healing, but like to the point of when you were, sorry.
No.
Okay.
I explained.
All right. When you were checking in the ticket, you had like all the information there added, like all the dashboard or screenshots of all the dashboards that were showing out of thresholds metrics. You had short descriptions where it pointed you to the exact failure, and that really helped in lowering the time to resolve the incident. Yeah.
Some question.
So we do, well, mostly self-healing's automated, but for some situations, when the blockchain goes wrong or you're out of balance or something, you don't know exactly whether it is automatable. So we do have runbooks, but we've got tests for them. But my challenge I found is the runbook is a test, but less technical users, or maybe let's say more junior developers, would struggle. Have you got any advice on how to translate those in a more automated fashion from the kind of advanced test one where you have to destroy the system and then fix it in a test to, kind of just a simple, because you said that the kind of almost most basic is the wiki page, but for the more junior developer, the wiki page would actually be better in that situation because it's much easier to understand. Whereas the test is great because it's, if you can't get through CI without, you can't fix the bug without kind of fixing the test. So the runbook's always accurate. Have you got a way of balancing those two, basically? Have you thought of that in the past? Because I've been struggling with that for a while.
Thank you. Intuitively sounds like there's some form of like knowledge sharing that should happen first of all, and also perhaps you can find like middle ground. So like the fallback for the automation should be some form of like maybe Jupyter notebook where they have some descriptions and then they could potentially run those steps from the notebook with just one click.
Hi, thank you for the speech. So I recently used AI to generate a README file, and it worked very well. I was just wondering, have you ever created a runbook from scratch using AI by giving it your whole service? And what sort of tips you have really trying to get AI to help you with the runbook?
I don't think I've been successful completely relying on AI to generate a runbook or a README. I think every single time, and it could well be because my prompts weren't detailed enough or sufficiently detailed. Yeah, that's what I said. They weren't detailed enough, didn't give it enough information. And so a lot of the time I find with AI, personally for me anyway, it's an iterative process. So I ask it to do something and then I will try and adjust the prompt based on what I get. I don't know if I have any specific advice other than I would say I lean into it for the boring dross bits and collecting of information, and then I personally refine it to make sure that it's valid and that I understand it and that any other engineer would be able to pick it up. So that's what I would say, that I still feel like there is a human in the loop that's needed. Did you want to add any more to that?
So based on the experience that I had with this small demo, what I did was to use essentially an AI tool in my IDE that's understanding the full project, context of the project, and then I use that AI to essentially generate me the prompt that has the description of the project, and I just picked like the database down or issue by myself, feed it into the prompt, and asked to generate me a comprehensive prompt that I put in another AI to generate the Runbook. So perhaps that's something like use AI to generate the prompt and then try that prompt in a different AI to generate the actual content that you need.
When we talk about AI is quite generic, and Runbook by definition is specialized to the place or the organization because it has some very specialized information. So AI can help when different Runbook information that has already been produced, but producing Runbook is more of a organization specific task which cannot be relied fully upon AIs.
Tools that actually have access to that. For example, internally we have tools that have access to that content.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If you have you can put your entire repo on the into AI as well. But then again, it is quite like the steps that are there are very specific, and they can't be generically applied for the same Kubernetes, let's say, cluster. Between organizations, it'll vary, so things like that. So yeah, that's what I mean.
I agree. It's going back to that human in the loop or the human kind of reviewer at the end. But yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for your time.